It's architectural meeting, and Lars, then probably start from your item.
Yeah, sure. So we have one story.
Ah, again. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Okay. We have one story about MySQL 8 auto increment ID removement. We did a spike last week and investigate different ways how we can remove the auto increment from Magento 2. What is the current problem? When we trying to upgrade Magento to the latest MySQL 8 version, we have several places, and MySQL 8 behaves different like MySQL 5.6 and returns if a null value if the table is not called or fetched before we asking for the auto increment. This behavior leads to a problem that we get a wrong auto increment, and for that reason we listed the places where we currently using auto increment. We have mostly the importer, and we have only one situation in MView. And for the different importers, we have a list here, and for MView also. And so let's go to the refactoring approaches. What we have here is for import, we have a solution also for MView. And what we need there is some feedback from the architecture team, which way we should go. It's mostly about we have currently traveled two ways, and also one performance and workaround way, and need to decide which way we should go there, and how we proceed with the spike. And if we go into the summary, there is a suggestion from our side. We should start with the workarounds to get a solution quickly, and then working on the replacement for the auto increment. And we estimate the refactoring around 3 to 4 weeks, and yeah. Is there any open question? Should I go to the refactoring?
Yes. Hi, this is Anton. I just have a few questions. The first one is, how you guys going to retrieve a last inserted after increment value?
You mean for MView?
For auto increment, everywhere I believe we have to keep consistent behavior.
I must search it in the proposal, but there should be a way written in the proposal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I see part
Can I-
about inserting and then using the value from the insert.
Anton, could you one more time? Could you please repeat your question? So your question is how we going to solve this temporarily right now, or kind of at all? Because we are going to get rid of this next auto increment functionality, the main solution, and another two solutions is to disable cache and to run analyze table before getting the statistic from MySQL.
Okay. I believe as Magento developers, all of we know that disabling cache is not an option. So let's consider.
I mean cache, MySQL cache.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
So disabling of any cache, I believe, not an option. So I would like to see more details on how we are going to emulate retrieval of last inserted ID.
So right now we get it from information schema. There are
and how this will be replaced.
It's not be replaced. We want to get rid of this functionality at all. We don't want to rely on the next increment ID.
Yes, it's fine. So what we will use instead?
Not sure what Joe proposed here.
We have here a modification. It's an analyze table and show table, and this is what he proposed there.
No, this is a temporary solution.
Anton, is the functionality of getting next IDs crucial for MVU? Should we keep it?
No, it's not connected. So I'm trying to realize what we are going to solve here for MView and how we are going to solve here for MView. So I can provide you several examples where this functionality is pretty critical. So I believe this is pretty significant change, and I would like to understand what we want to do, because right now it's not clear for me.
So our main goal is to make Magento not depend on this functionality at all. So our main goal is to eliminate functionality of retrieval of the next auto increment value from Magento and implement it. So that currently what guys did, they looked through Magento code base and found all the places where this functionality currently used. And currently we have two main places which rely on next auto increment ID. This is the
Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe we don't have any issues with retrieving the next after increment ID from last insert ID function. This functionality works correctly across all MySQL versions. The problem that we are trying to solve is this problem with metadata, which does not have information of last inserted ID because obviously it cached and it has some time to leave. Actually, we cannot rely on this value from information schema. Is this correct understanding of the problem we are trying to solve?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the question we should address, this is how we will return information about last inserted ID, because I don't see any issues with retrieving a new sequential ID. This functionality works correctly. Okay, so here is my question: how we are going to retrieve actual last inserted ID, or how we are going to solve rewrite such functionality?
Okay, let's go back probably to what we have. So we have import, which needs next out increment ID, right?
I believe not next, but current. Next after increment ID works perfectly everywhere because it's relying on function last insert ID, which is works correctly across all MySQL versions. So the problem here, what I see that we have to, in case of import, guess what was the last inserted ID. Instead of guessing, I believe that we could just generate this ID and have a full object which will receive an ID from us as a developers, not from a database as an additional read query. Does it make sense?
What do you propose? Do you propose to change how we insert products in import?
I'm proposing change functionality, how we are working with the IDs, product IDs in import. Actually, what is going on right now? Right now, we are trying to insert some data. After we inserted this data, we are trying to read information about this inserted product to GUES ID. And this is a root of our problem, cause of our problem. In case we will generate this ID in unique way prior to inserting data, we will not to question what ID we should use to persist, for instance, options or variations for configurable product. The same for customer. As I see, the problem here is not in effect that we cannot save a customer. Problem here is that we would like to save an address with ID of this customer. So instead of trying to persist customer and retrieve ID of this customer after persistence, we can just generate this ID before we are saving customer and have our object in incomplete states since early beginning.
Yeah,
but Anton, the main question there is then how we can generate this unique ID, because we have maybe different, maybe somebody goes in the backend, also say a customer or creating a new customer, or somebody register on the front end at the same time. And for this functionality, we have unique keys in databases. And to generate them by a software, we have different entry points, and it's not so easy to do this. Maybe we can use a UID, but then we cannot completely sure if somebody clicks on in the same milliseconds on register, we're getting duplicated IDs.
Okay, yeah, I can answer this. In a perfect world, we will use a UID for identifying objects. But right now, to respect backward compatibility, we can do the following. Actually, we're already doing this for a Magento Enterprise Edition. There are no. Actually, have you ever worked with the Magento sales sequence tables? How Magento generate unique IDs for increment IDs, for orders, credit memo, invoices, and at all. So MySQL provides a pretty straightforward way how to manage unique sequential values that you may use as a ID in our case. You just have to set up an empty table, perform a single insert. As a result, you will have a function which is get last insert ID, which is not relying on session and always returns you the last inserted ID without any intersection across all possible concurrent connections that you may have.
Yeah, I know what you mean there, but I'm not really sure about is this feature available in different databases, because we're trying as architecture team or as developer maybe to replace a MySQL with some separate Postgres, etc. database in the future, and it's a MySQL feature. We should not use it, and we should use a more general database feature there. And this is my question on your idea again.
Actually, because we are using we do support only MySQL right now. I don't see a big problem that we will use such functionality. Anyway, I believe that I didn't check this for a while, but I believe that Postgres also supports a possibility to return last insert ID, or even better, I believe that Postgres has a real sequences which can play the same role. This is just a question of implementation. Main point here that when we have to rely on some IDs, we cannot expect that these IDs will be generated as auto increment field. We have to emulate these IDs and pre-generate them in advance to use them as a kind of natural IDs in case we don't have another way to recognize an entity only this ID field.
Okay, guys, let's introduce some clarity here. First of all, are we all agree that we want to eliminate the existing functionality relying on the metadata of the table's metadata to retrieve the existing? Are we agree on it?
Yes, and I just wanted to get the meeting note from the last time when we discussed it. So what the solution was is first refactor Magento core to not use table status. So yeah, that's answer to your question. We all agreed that we do not want to rely on this. Second, deprecate show table status and a method, and then also still implement a workaround for show table status in 2.3. So we need some workaround which will still provide this auto increment value for 2.3 because we cannot just remove it.
Yeah, so the main question we are discussing right now is to how properly implement that workaround, because we still need to support all those clients who currently rely on the API which we're going to deprecate. Correct?
Exactly. Yeah, which is relying on some integer IDs to recognize entity in our system.
So can we use the functionality mentioned by Anton that with this table which contains auto-generated ID?
My point, because we already have such functionality for enterprise management is content staging, and we have a pretty similar functionality for sales increments. It's pretty obvious that we can reuse it.
We can probably add it as an option, but let's still look through the options that guys reviewed.
Yeah, sure.
Performance. So, performance of workarounds. So what we have. Use analyze table before fetching table status. So it gives us 2.37% loss. What were you measuring? So it was importing, okay. And then another one is disabling cache, which gives 0.59% degradation. I mean, for me, it doesn't look too much still. And as far as I remember, when people were asking MySQL guys, they were also suggesting the same thing, like disabling cache.
Why we do not enable int back after show table status?
Because, I mean, this is cache for this.
Oh, I mean, in this code, we disable cache.
This setting should be only available for one connection, but yeah, sure, we should set them back too.
I was also thinking maybe we can.
Do we know impact how calling disable enable cache will affect concurrent operations?
No, but I think, yes, that's a good point that Andrei reminded, is that we don't need to have it disabled forever. We need it only probably first time. I would even make it like show table status and see if out increment is null, then disable cache and retrieve it once again and enable cache, because it will happen. It happens like the problem happens only first time, as I understand, when nobody touches the table, but it's just created. Right, if I remember correctly. So I would assume that performance impact will be really small, probably.
Yeah, let's add this as comment. I will discuss this tomorrow with Gene, and let's see what he means on this topic. Also, a good question is what is if we are setting these queries for every auto increment, what happens with the connection? This is a good question.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, maybe it also makes sense to add this option from Anton, like what we can do. There we will need to see probably how much work will it be, like what exactly we need to change to use a sequence table.
Also, guys, I briefly reviewed your proposal. I see a lot of usages of max version ID as trying to identify the latest inserted ID into table by selecting the latest one, listed one in transaction. It doesn't. It will not work because MySQL supports transaction, and when you're reading one version from one single transaction, another one can insert new data, which will have a different max version ID, and as a result, you will have collisions between versions. So selecting last inserted ID in transaction is always not an option, because our application expects that several concurrent users may work with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's maybe review it, Anton, if you can add your comments to the proposal. Maybe you
I am working on it.
By the way, regarding disabling table status cache, is this cache disabling should be done on a session level or on a global level?
If it works on session level, it should be on session level. Because what's the reason to disable it for other session, for other connection?
Yeah, I agree with this. Actually, we have to check the impact. In case if we'll have to do this in rare cases, maybe it could be an option. But I really believe that I really believe that MySQL team added this cache by purpose. So probably
yes, by purpose, but they added it in a very strange way. Like they added cache, but behavior became different. So like you need to know that, okay, if nobody touched the table, then you will not get the result. Like it's, as for me, it's a very strange implementation of cache, but this is what we have. And
I can understand the logic, because this is not this is metadata, not metadata. This is statistic. This is something that cannot be guaranteed. This is like a report. You cannot say that your report is up to date in any second. So it's
yes,
fine.
So
but in general, it's a good idea to rely on last insert ID.
So yeah, I guess the target, like the long-term goal, which we should not forget about later, is to just eliminate usages of this auto increment and remove this method at all in 2.4 or somewhere in the future, so we don't even have this question. But for now, we need some workaround, which will be least impactful for everyone, I guess. Okay, so let's probably review the proposal offline. We can
But
discuss it.
what exactly we want to review more? Like, do we still?
Yeah, I can explain. Right now, I see a lot of queries which trying to return last inserted ID as a select max from a table, which is inappropriate. This is not a thread safe, and I would like to ensure that we don't have and we will not introduce such behavior with this proposal. And I believe this is still open question. In case this is a problem, we have to figure out how we can replace this logic with more appropriate solution.
So
does that make sense?
From my perspective, like I see that from the architectural perspective, we already have an agreement here. So that we have the desirable state which we all agree on. We already looked through the code base and found all the usages. So actually, guys did that. So we have like up to 7 or 8 usages. And we agreed that all that particular usage should be refactored in a way to not depend anymore on the show table status. So each of that place should be refactored. So the thing which you particularly mentioned, Anton, like the max ID in a particular table, was just probably improper way of making that particular refactoring on some particular. But I just want to provide this decision and to team, so that team will, during the grooming or maybe additional spike or maybe whatever procedure team will decide as appropriate to come up with a particular solution. If they need more collaboration with architects, they of course will do it on their regular grooming meetings. But I just want to prevent.
My point here is that a way how this code should be refactored should be a subject of this document. In other hand, we have a risk that we will have to work with results and trying to redo something after. So I would like to see it here if this is possible. But if you believe that this is not applicable here and we can leave this how it is, let's do this.
No. So my goal is not to make all the work done by architects, because if we will start to consider all particular places, if we will as an architectural team will extend this document of with all the refactoring need to be introduced. So what the team should do in this case, just copy paste that particular code snippets from this document to Magento code base and make the commits. Because in this case, we will be just a bottleneck for the team.
No, but what I'm saying is that let's review the document offline. Additionally, let's leave all the comments there. As I understand, the team should still discuss between themselves and see if it's possible to enable cashback, so that it's not disabled all the time. And then the team can also add this approach recommended by Anton with a sequence table.
Yeah, guys, if you see that's involved, myself or somebody else from our team could be helpful for you, feel free to do this.
Yeah, currently I'm not sure about the solution because it can be a little bit impact of how Magento currently works, because we need to move the main increment ID out of the table or has a separate table, and also we need to change the queries how we solve an address for a checkout or something like that. This is an example what I currently think about, because we have many points there we're using the customer IDs to solve addresses, etc. And if we are changing the main ID, then it's not so easy. We also need to change the places how the queries works there. And to do this in a backward compatible way, I'm currently not sure if we can do this in the 2.3. We must take a look on it.
Yeah, well, let's maybe speak about this offline. I'm more optimistic about it because, in effect, you will have to, my opinion, to perform just a single change in before save mechanism, and I can point you how this works with the order management system. It's pretty straightforward, and no other changes will be required. At any way in Magento.
But you need this ID in import, like how before save will help.
Yeah, we need this in two places. We have to provide a possibility specify this ID before persisting customer, or generate this ID when we are persisting customers during checkout. What guys just mentioned, that we cannot change this only for important, rely on the fact that checkout will work correctly. So these changes may happen in two places: the resource model and additional sequence manager. In case if both of changes will be in sync, there will be no backward incompatible changes for any type of Magento extensions. And let's discuss this separately. Feel free to book a meeting and go through this.
Just a quick question: can we introduce the quick fix with the disabling cache and then enabling it back, and run all our part tests on MySQL 8.0 to see whether this trick actually works for our existing dependencies on this functionality? So I suppose that after the fix with the disabling and then enabling cache, we're supposed to get green builds, and all the functionality which currently relying on show table status should work as expected. We may get some performance degradation because enabling and disabling cache, but afterwards, like at least all the tests should be green. I mean, the functionality should be green. Is it correct?
This is a good question. I'm not sure that we do have a good performance test for import functionality.
But in any case,
problem to have a MySQL 8 on our build, we currently do not.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, maybe let's discuss this offline, because we're already discussing it for 30 minutes and we still have other topics. We barely will be able to do it. But we have other 25 minutes.
Just a quick thing to clarify. But because guys already determined that as a problem, so they were running MySQL, like they were running our builds on the MySQL 8.0. Is it correct, Lars?
Yes. I think functional, right, and integration or something like that, not performance, probably.
Can you please add this fix with the disabling and enabling cache and run the test once again just to see whether the problem gone? And if it's gone, we may consider this as a fix, so that we just need to properly calculate the performance degradation on import scenario and on a view scenario, so that we may decide how we will refactor that functionality properly. And while you will be doing that, the guy from the architectural team, Anton, in particularly, will look through the proposal and provide more recommendation on how that particular place should be refactored. Does it sound good?
Just one more note is that, as I understand, before MySQL 8, there was no caching. So, I mean, if we will be comparing to previous version of MySQL, we probably won't have degradation, though I agree we need to measure. But if we will be comparing with MySQL 8,
but I guess why we are comparing that with MySQL 8? We should always be comparing it with MySQL 5.6, because currently with
Okay.
Yeah, the deal that they solved some of the MySQL 5.7 issue in some way that forced them to create this caching. So they asked storage for this statistic just because of, if I'm not mistaken, after reloading server, some of statistic of this the database disappeared or something like that. So they now store it to the storage, and the call to the storage, as I understand, cost some valuable amount of time, so they decided to cache it. Regarding the Igor question about the running with MySQL 8 right now the tests, so we have only Jenkins builds with MySQL 8, not the Bamboo, not a pod tests, and that's why we are not able to estimate what the performance degradation will be in this case. But you can actually see that at the screen that Joe made some estimation. It's actually in proposal made some estimation, if I'm not mistaken, at the local environment before modification and with different types of approaches. Regarding the running test with MySQL 8 and Jenkins, so it's just start of MySQL 8. We just, not actually we, but Max Lisechka identified this problem, and I believe there are much more problems will be during implementing MySQL 8. So we will not have right now, fixing just this issue, we will not have support MySQL 8 right now with and all Jenkins builds green.
As I understand, potentially we won't have, or you definitely know that there are issues.
Potentially, yeah. I run it at the clear main line with MySQL 8. There are a lot of issues, and I believe that it's not only about this next auto increment, but I'm not sure.
Okay, so maybe let's move to the next item, and I don't know, guys, if you will have time, we can probably sync after this meeting. If not, let's just schedule something. Thank you. Thank you for the investigation. Okay, next is Alex.
Hello. So you should be able to see my screen now. I have several topics related to GraphQL, and I'll probably have to go really fast because I have only 20 minutes left. So one of the issues is multi-device support for customer cart in GraphQL, and currently the issue is that if you have multiple devices and, for example, you start your checkout on one device and then you switch to another device, you will not be able to complete checkout because we don't have proper commutations and queries. So proposed solution is to introduce customer cart ID query, which will be available only for registered customers. And this query will always return active cart ID. And with this proposal, we also restrict having multiple cards per customer, per registered customer. And this was approved by our product owner, Nishant. So if you have this new requirement, then customer card ID can return new card ID when it's invoked for the first time, or existing card ID when it's invoked subsequently. And obviously, if you call it from multiple devices, you will always get the same card ID. So the scenario will look as follows. Let's say you start session on laptop, you invoke this customer card ID, you get new card ID in response, and obviously you have to provide valid customer token in all of these queries because you have to be registered customer to use these queries. Then from laptop you add some product to this card, and then on your smartphone you invoke customer card ID, you get active card ID, which is the same, and you can retrieve card items added from laptop using smartphone. Alternatives which are considered is like there is actually one alternative is to introduce optional card ID to get card. Currently, it is required to have unification of flows between customer and guest. And if you make card ID optional, we can say that if customer token is not provided, then we treat this session as a guest and card ID is required. While if customer token is provided, then we can omit card ID in this query, and we will just identify customer ID and his card ID based on the active token. However, in this case, the flow is not so consistent between customer and guest, and from the very beginning, we had requirement to have consistency between flows, as much as possible consistency between flows for customer and for guest to simplify development and support. So at the moment, guest will still have to invoke create empty card and use that ID, and customer will have to use customer card ID. So this is the only deviation between customer and guest flows, and the rest stays as it is now.
So it takes 2 steps to request card ID and then follow up with add to cart on that card ID. Is that correct?
Yes, and currently it also requires 2 requests, but currently you have to use create empty card, and you get new card ID all the time.
So my question is it possible for a customer to have more than one cart, more than one active cart?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we got new requirement from our product owner in Shant saying that it is not possible and we don't want to support this case.
Right, so if they only have one active cart, I don't see why this can't be done in one step, right? Because then you would just add to cart with the customer ID, which is always constant, and then you could do it on the back end and look up the active card ID from that standpoint, right?
We can, yes, we can, but in this case we will get a difference in flow, so you will have to support 2 parallel flows for guest and for card. One is with card ID, another without card ID, and it will be the same for all operations, not just add product to cart.
Yeah,
like set shipping address, set billing address, etc.
I think, yeah, I'd like to talk more offline about that.
With Nishant, because we have like possibility to have multiple cards in B2B edition.
I'm not sure. Can you have multiple active cards?
It's not active, but you can have multiple and switch between in process of. So actually, it will work strange. So you can switch from one card to another, and other device you have like you retrieve other card. So it will be, I believe, unexpected behavior.
Nobody's going to be adding to an inactive cart, though, correct? There's no reason that would be a supported scenario.
Actually, in B2B you can add, because you can create quote that is formally card for us, and work with it with multiple quotes at the same time.
I have several cards and process them.
Right. But that's kind of isolated too. From the user standpoint, though, like if we're talking about a customer shopping, they would never have the ability to do that, right?
Yeah, but it's about customer in B2B edition.
Okay, so just to clarify, so before we got this new requirement that we'll have only single card, the proposal was customer card IDs. So you would get all IDs of all of your active cards. So if this is what you're saying makes sense, and we convince Nishant that it is needed, we can just convert customer card ID into customer card IDs, and then client application will have to decide which card to use to work with.
Maybe we need to discuss it with Nishant one more time.
Yeah, so if you could leave your comment with the flow, which is not supported currently, that would be great.
also one question, Alex, maybe I missed this point. How is this different from Guest card checkout? For Guest, we already have a card ID.
So for Guest, you have create empty card endpoint, which is not allowing you to share session between multiple devices. So you have no way to get active card ID from another device. You will always get new card ID.
So this is fine, but in your opinion, does it make sense to combine this somehow in case you are a guest? In this case, you cannot share this ID. In case you are a registered customer, you can.
Yeah, but the question how, like let's say you have another application, smart. So you started session on laptop, then you switch to smartphone. What the call would look like to get active card?
No, there's no way to do that.
Okay. So what I don't like right now, that's the fact that we potentially have two ways to identify a card.
So one will be working only for guests, another will be working only for customers. So we can implement verification and just throw error if, let's say, customer try to use create empty card or guest try to use customer card ID. That's the idea. So, and this will be the only like deviation between two flows, and the rest will always require, like all other operations will always require card ID. So it will be unified.
But in effect, are we going to use the same ID that we will be able to use to identify a card, and different endpoints, or both of endpoints will return the same IDs, and we probably may have a collision between IDs, ID from from Guest card and customer card.
I'm not sure I understand the problem, but obviously everybody should have different card ID. So it should be UUID. So for simplification here, it was just like small number, but eventually we want to have UUIDs, right?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's card object will have two additional fields: Guest checkout ID and customer checkout ID. Something like this.
No, I believe it will always have just card ID, and then it will either have customer assigned or not. So no changes are proposed in schema or anywhere. So the only thing which is proposed is a way to get active customer card ID using query, and also restrict create empty card for customers.
Actually, I believe you can have like this, and if you need like more advanced API in B2B, we can just add one more.
So yeah, Andrew. So we can, if you can leave your flow, we can discuss exactly how to support it. But as I say, the easiest way, if there is no other way, we can just, if we don't have restriction for a single card, we can just add plural here, and it will work. Yeah. It will complicate client, because client will have to choose.
Actually, I changed my mind, and now I think that its current approach is good enough.
So if no other major questions, let's move on. Then there is proposal for store pickup schema. The store pickup, as you may know, this is functionality when customer can choose to pick up his order from store instead of being shipped to his home. And currently, the only part which is missing to support it is actually rendering list of available stores for pickup. And the query which is proposed here is allowing to render list of stores which customer can choose from. So this query will accept filters. Currently, it is just search term. Potentially, it can also be extended with, let's say, radius from his zip code or something like that. So we introduce some type for extensibility purposes, and currently what we support in store pickup is just search term. Additionally, we support pagination, so we want to have page size and current page in the query. And in response, you get a list of stores available for pickup, which are sorted based on admin configuration, and by default it is, I believe, the distance from the user. And additionally, you also get page info, which can be used to build pagination, and total count, which can be rendered on the page as well, like how many records were found. Individual store will be represented with its name, which is user-friendly name of the store, description like hours of operation, etc. Again, in the admin it's called front-end description, and this needs to be differentiated from name and description, because in the admin there are also some admin-specific fields which must never be displayed on the storefront. So you also get country, region, city, street, postcode, and phone number, which is again should be customer-facing phone number, not internal phone number for the specific location. And in the future, we can add filters, as I mentioned, like we can add filters by location and maybe any other data. But for now, I believe this is what is covering functionality of store pickup, and it allows to build parity with existing UI.
Why we don't have like cart items in pickup locations query?
Because this is just a payment method. Oh, sorry, this is shipping method basically. Why would we have,
for example,
locations?
I request a red T-shirt and it's not available as one of location. So how
I don't know. This is not how it works now. So usually, at least what I can tell from what I've seen, like in other store pickups, usually you can pick up from any store and they will just distribute it between stores as needed. So you can choose to pick up from your closest store and they will just deliver it to the store, even if it's not present there.
Alex, sorry. In your opinion, does it make sense to intersect somehow pickup location with existing address interface?
I don't think so, because pickup location is a completely different entity. It's not customer address. It is managed separately in admin. I mean, it has completely different meaning.
Yeah, it's. I see what you're saying. Actually,
a different set of fields, obviously.
But regarding this, I believe that okay, we probably may have different names and different times for exactly the same features. For instance, region looks like right now region does not support features that we have for regions for customers, like enum of states. I believe this is something that we probably can sync somehow.
I don't see we really need this, because all this is just output. The user has no way to input any data. Like if we have inputs, then enum would make sense. But for display purposes, I believe strings should be okay.
Okay, I would like to take a look on customer address that we have right now, because I believe it probably have some intersections that probably should be addressed, but in general, I understood your point.
Okay, so please leave your comments if you have any comments, and if no other major concerns, let's move on. I still have several minutes. Maybe we can review one more proposal. This proposal is about adding EAV attribute metadata to GraphQL schema. So currently we have some use cases like render advanced catalog search form, which can be configured by merchant, so merchant can decide what fields should be displayed on advanced catalog search. We also have different product presentation on product details page and category page. Usually list of attributes displayed on category page is more narrow compared to product page, and this is currently configured via special EAV attribute metadata, like showing product listing or something like that. And additionally, we have some use case for rendering products on product attributes on compare page. And again, it is managed by the admin which attributes should be displayed when customer compares products. So all these scenarios require specific AV attribute metadata to be accessible from the storefront application. And proposed solution is to use GraphQL schema directives, and by specification they can be used to describe additional information for types and fields, fragments, and operations. And since we have all AV attributes automatically added to our GraphQL schema, what we will have to do, we will have to just add a tag, additional like directive, it's called directive in GraphQL terms, metadata with arguments. And these arguments can be, I would say, optional, and they will represent specific property of AV attribute. So like, is this attribute dynamic or it is static? So it may affect on rendering on product details page, let's say to which tab specific attribute should be placed. Is this just general characteristics, or it's like detailed view of product information? Additionally, we can have something like using compare products, displaying product listing for category page, whether it should be displayed on category page, used in advanced search, and maybe advanced search input type. And obviously, this list can be extended as needed, depending on other use cases that we come up with. The proposal is to add all this metadata automatically to all fields, and it is still possible to manually override some data here for fields which are defined in schema, like name and school. So they are currently defined in schema, and it's possible to create your override, and we need to set high priority to this override. But by default, all fields, including static fields like name and school, they all should get metadata directive added automatically. So alternative solution is to extend our custom attribute metadata query and probably introduce another set of specialized queries, let's say attributes for product listing or something like that, and it will give you a list of attributes applicable to product listing or attributes for compare products. And again, it will be just for compare products. And the problem with this approach is that we will introduce a lot of queries, and it's not probably so developer friendly. With this approach, I would also like to know that even though all this will be automatically added to schema, it is not necessarily true that it will be visible in tools like GraphQL, because tools like GraphQL act as GraphQL clients, and they use introspection to decide what to render, and they do not render all directives by default. So most likely, custom directives like metadata will not be visible in such tools. That's probably it. Like, any questions?
Yeah, I don't think we can use a simple schema approach, because, for example, it cannot provide access for attribute options, for example.
Attribute options.
Yeah, for example, you have like a list of cities, and you need to for advanced search, you need to render it on advanced search page. So simple schema will not work.
Yeah, makes sense. So, by the way, I forgot to mention that the idea is that client application will do introspection query once and then cache results. We still need to figure out how to implement cache validation, but so there will be no query for this metadata. And for the case which Andrew describes, we will have to use existing custom attribute metadata, which will give all necessary information. And it probably doesn't make sense to include options because usually they are more dynamic than, I mean, we can try to do that, but again, I don't see how to do it with this approach. So for specific attributes which are represented as select, multi-select, or basically any attributes that have options, we probably will have to still use existing custom attribute metadata. And just to remind, so this query works. You give it a list of attributes for which you need to get metadata, and it gives you this metadata. But it cannot give you, let's say, give me all attributes to use in product listing. So it doesn't work like this. So Andrew, what do you think about this approach?
So I actually don't see any reason to have metadata, but
so if you don't have metadata, we will have multiple specialized queries.
why we don't have like custom attribute metadata queries that can return all needed information?
The problem is, like, when are you going to invoke it? Are you going to invoke it just once and then cache it, or are you proposing to invoke it on every query?
Actually, the same approach that you want to use for metadata. What's the difference actually? It's only about representation, the difference. But for using the approach the same, so caching mechanisms will work in the same way.
Okay, you can leave your comment. We can think about this.
Okay.
But for now, the idea was not to cache results of custom attribute metadata and to always get it directly from database. We can think about this.
Yeah, but I don't think it will be a big problem. It's like big requests. Don't expect any big problem with it.
Okay, suppose we are out of time, and probably I'll have to move a couple items for the next meeting.
Thanks. Thank you all, and see you next time.